Welcome, everyone, to the PFF Fantasy Podcast, IDP edition. I'm Jon Macri, and we are back with one more positional rankings episode for our rookie IDPs. This is my favorite series to do this offseason. You know, we've covered the linebackers, we've done the edges, and now we get to close things out with the rookie safeties, who I know, look, might not be the most valuable IDP position, but like we saw this past season with Budda Baker, they can put together some massive seasons in their own right. So maybe the next Budda Baker can be found in this year's rookie class. Who knows? But I'm ready to find out. So let's get it. All right, rookie safety season has always meant two Johns, one pod, but unfortunately, my partner on the mic was living his best life in Vegas during our pre-draft recording week. But fret not, cherished listeners, because I am very excited to say that he is back from Vegas, back from dominating the Bellagio, back from being pulled up on stage to perform with Britney Spears and whatever else goes on in Sin City. From Dynasty Nerds, my guy Jon Glosser. JG, what's up, man?
How's it going, John? Yeah, Vegas couldn't stop us, when it's
Yeah.
DB season, rookie DB season. The John cast lives on, so I'm glad we're able to get together, figure this out, and even if it's post draft, we're able to, keep the tradition going for another year.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I always look forward to this. It's like the safeties obviously not the sexiest position for IDP, but there's always like interesting players every year, and that's kind of why like I like breaking these groups down, like especially the safeties, because they're the ones that don't get a lot of attention. But I think we could find some things to like about these guys, and um reasons to be optimistic for them for IDP. And it's not going to be the case with all of them, that's for sure. Where I mean, I think we're only going to cover like 8 today, because we're not going to go as deep for them. But there's definitely some IDP value here to be found. So that's what I kind of like doing is going after some of these non-obvious players, talking about them a little bit, and trying to find some IDP value in there for our rookie draft. So yeah, man, been looking forward to this. Obviously missed you pre-draft, but happy to get you back on here.
Yeah,
Um,
I like your point there too on the DBs. Like if you think about that around the league, those guys really typically have the best chance to start just based off of how many are playing on the field, injuries and all that kind of stuff. You see, I think a lot higher hit rates on some of those rookie safeties sometimes, and also guys that are falling drastically in your rookie drafts because, so we know offense kind of dominates there, and linebackers king, and everybody wants the fresh new edge that's gonna
yeah.
have double digit sacks. But we saw even with Tyler Nubin prior to getting hurt last year, right? Like putting up some of those weeks where it's just 20 points after 20 points after 20 points. You're not even getting that from rookie wide receivers or running backs most of the time. So, definitely a great point there, and one of the reasons why we love kind of getting together and breaking down some of these guys, even if they don't seem to be the most attractive, you know, right after the draft or before the draft.
Yeah, man. It's true, right? Like, yeah, Tyler Nubin is like a great example of it. Like every year there's like somebody, right? Like one of these rookie safeties that emerges, if not more than one, right? And right away as rookies. So there's gonna be names here that we're gonna be drafting in 2025 or rostering and starting in 2025. So we're gonna hopefully kind of highlight who those guys are gonna be here. We're basically gonna run through the names in order that they were drafted. We'll talk about what we like or don't like about their IDP potential. We'll talk about if we're drafting them in rookie drafts, and then if so, where, and then kind of ranking them at the end. So we'll get right into it here, and we'll kick things off with the very first safety drafted in 2025. That was Malaki Starks out of Georgia, going to the Baltimore Ravens. So not a huge surprise that Starks was safety one off the board, Glosser, although that gap was closing a little bit as we got closer to the draft. But ultimately, he was the lone first round safety this year. What did you think about Starks going to the Ravens?
From like an NFL perspective, it's like everyone's team that is not the Ravens is like, oh, of course, right? Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, Starks like fills a huge gap there. I think we saw it towards the end of last year. Darius Washington ended up coming on, a guy that we actually talked about as a undrafted free agent, I believe that
Yeah.
year that he came out, and his size was concerning. Or worried about some of the tackles, but he had a pretty solid season. Didn't really come on until week 7. I think he had 15 points or fantasy points or more in 6 of those last 10. So ended up coming on, but were forced to move Kyle Hamilton back to a true safety position instead of that nickel robber type of role. Didn't affect Kyle Hamilton as much as us truthers would have thought. But Malaki Starks going there gives them another safety, crazy versatility. We all, seen the highlight interception, that's sends shockwaves around the world. The guy's ball skills are crazy. So interesting about him too, with the versatility for especially Baltimore scheme. 270 slot snaps last year and 215 box snaps. I believe it was his highest missed tackle rate of his career. But playing in a role that probably doesn't suit him for the NFL level, like that box type of thing. That might be a reason why for that. I mean, leading Georgia in tackles last year, I don't think that's something that we'll ever expect from him on the NFL level, or see from him on that level. But my biggest concern with him is, as long as Marlon Humphrey and Kyle Hamilton are there, those are probably two guys that are going to consistently be in the top 25 to 36 of DBs in the league, fantasy scoring. So where does Malachi fit into that in terms of producing fantasy points for us? So like the player a lot. I think he was tied for the highest prospect score for you guys. Agree with that, right? He's awesome. He's a hell of a football player, high IQ, all that kind of stuff. So, from a fantasy point perspective, does he, look to take away some of that deep stuff so Hamilton can maybe go back, nickel back type of matchup piece? That would be my only concern. But yeah, love Malachi Starks as a player. So, I would not be surprised at all if he was a consistent, IDP asset going forward.
Yeah, that's kinda how I'm thinking about him as well, right? Like, I think the Ravens drafted him because last year, they tried out Marcus Williams, they tried out Eddie Jackson, eventually had to turn to Ardarius Washington, like, to play more of that deep safety role, right? And I think Ardarius Washington was gonna get a chance this year, obviously, before they drafted Malaki Starks, but, he also tore his Achilles, this week or something like that, which sucks, right? So, there's really no reason to kind of be concerned about Starks, at least for playing time in year 1, right? He's gonna be that starting safety along with Kyle Hamilton. So he profiles a little bit more as that kind of deep safety. So and I think that's why the Ravens liked him, because it gives, like you said, an opportunity for Kyle Hamilton to play more of that role a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage, do a little bit more, blitzing and playing in the box and stuff like that. Where, last year between Williams and Jackson and Washington, whoever was starting alongside Kyle Hamilton, they played about 70% of their defensive snaps from a deep alignment. So I think that'll be similar to for Starks. Like I think he might come up a little bit more than that, but it's gonna I think mostly gonna be more of a deep role. Let Kyle Hamilton play close to the line of scrimmage. But and still, we see a lot of deep safeties be productive for IDP, like even if the majority of them are not. But I think with Starks in particular, I think the appeal with him in Baltimore to be one of those safeties that maybe can produce for us despite the deep role is that he does come with a strong run defense grade, coming out of college, 90.3 run defense grade for his career, which is a 92nd percentile mark among safety prospects since 2018. So he can rotate down, he can support in run defense, even if he isn't like the primary safety to do that, which is more than likely going to be Hamilton. But Starks at least can do a good job kind of cleaning up in the secondary. I think he's in a great spot as a first round pick with a strong profile coming out of college. Like you said, the highest prospect score for this year's class, actually tied for the highest, 8.67, where 60% of safeties that have gone on to finish with 8.5 or higher have finished as top 12 in IDP at least once for their position. 85% have finished top 24, 90% have finished top 36. So he's in this very kind of ideal cohort for a very volatile position that I think makes him worth betting on in rookie drafts. And, if someone were to spend like a late third, early fourth, I think that's a perfectly fine price to pay considering the potential hit rate, which isn't going to be, anywhere. near as high for other players in that range, even if it's a less valuable position. So, yeah, like Malachi Starks quite a bit here. Okay, so we like Starks. He was the first safety drafted, obviously, great opportunity in year one, all that fun stuff. But there's another safety that I like even more as the second safety drafted this year, and that's Nick Emmanwori out of South Carolina, going to the Seattle Seahawks. So Emmanwori was the other one that also scored exactly an 8.67 in the prospect model, like Malachi Starks, which puts the two of them kind of neck and neck if we're using that as a guide. But for me, even though the draft capital is slightly lower, which, when looking back at the numbers, it wasn't enough to actually matter as like any safety basically drafted from 21 to 50 were very comparable. So really the tiebreaker for me ended up being just how much Emmanwari projects to play closer to the line of scrimmage. So 43% of his college defensive snaps came in the box compared to just 22% for Stark. So basically twice as many. And then when you look at the size comparisons as well, like dude is an absolute beast. 97th percentile height, 96th percentile weight, 86th percentile wingspan. And he's an elite athlete. He scored like a perfect 10 RAS as well. Now, RAS athletic scores, they don't actually matter all that much for the safety position, surprisingly. So that isn't weighted like highly into the model like it is for other positions, but it doesn't hurt to say, look at this, the guy's really athletic. So Emmanwari should be in a good position, I think, to start year one with his kind of primary competition being Kobe Bryant, who, did have moments last year of IDP relevancy. And, it's not impossible that Kobe Bryant begins the year as the starter over Emmanwari, but either way, I don't think we should expect Emmanwari to be held off the field for long. You consider the potential to kind of dominate around the line of scrimmage while also not running two full-time linebackers in that defense last year. I think there's potential for Emmanwari to kind of act as the LB2 on those downs where someone like Tyrese Knight is maybe coming off the field. So that would be another big boost to his IDP potential. I think he could really end up being an absolute stud for IDP relative to the safety position that is. But this is exactly, I think, the type of player and profile that we should be targeting at the position, and one that we don't actually get all that often that checks as many boxes as Emmanwari. So I love the potential for him in Mike McDonald's defense as well to be kind of used as similarly to Kyle Hamilton potentially, and that should absolutely be something we're in on for IDP and why he's my safety one. So where are you at with Emmanwari? Because we didn't get to talk about him pre-draft together. So I'm interested if you feel as optimistic as I do, I guess.
Yeah, Emmanwori kind of, stole our hearts a little bit there from the combine on
Yeah.
to the pre-draft process, and then, to your point, when you're talking draft capital, you're talking 3 picks into the 2nd round. Call it a first round pick if you want to.
Mhm.
But yeah, number 1 production score, number 1 athleticism score, for the combine. Yeah, I mean, my biggest concern is, like, I love the landing spot. I think if you're depth chart watching right now, you're like, but Julian Love, right? Right. Like, and Julian Love is great, right? But you don't draft Emmanwari there to say, okay, like Julian Love's on borrowed time, right? I think he's like 26 or 27. He signed till, Kobe Bryant did come on last year. I think he had a few, maybe like 6 to 7 double-digit games. 3 of those, he did have an interception, but, I mean, this Seattle secondary is extremely talented. It is very good. To your point, McDonald's game using cover 2, cover 6, cover 3, like, he's gonna find a way to get Aaron Wari on the field. You're also playing in a division with George Kittle, like, you got these matchup problems. Terrence Ferguson just ended up getting drafted highly, a little higher than we expected to the Rams, like looking for those tight end movers, those guys that can create matchup problems. I think Gamma Wire is one of those rare ones that can create them on the other side of the ball, a la, Kyle Hamilton type. So, and then, obviously the prospect score, like I think this is a guy that we're going to be talking about in the top, 15 to 18, DBs, for years to come, right? Like he's the total package. Also my DB1, a guy that just kind of flashes, right? And then when South Carolina had a lot of players on that team, so you weren't really, you don't really focus on one guy, but then when you go in and watch the tape, like you can't help but say like, okay, like this guy's going to be a player. And then obviously the measurables and the ability to run and the ability to match up. So yeah, he's what you're looking for in IDP. I don't personally, I don't really care if Kobe Bryant and Julian Love are holding down those safety spots because I
Mhm.
think he will find a way on the field. I mean, I do not think you want Tyrese Knight out there in coverage anyway, especially on passing downs. So I could see him on where he, to your point, kind of sliding in that linebacker hybrid role. He's going to score us some fantasy points. So very excited about him.
Yeah, yeah, same man. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing him play, and yeah, you're right. Like if it is Kobe Bryant and Julian Love to start the year, like as the safeties, like safety is a position that we can afford to be patient at because there's so many other options that we can just plug into the lineup. Like it's worth kind of holding an Emmanwori and waiting for his chance to start because of everything that he could potentially provide as an IDP at the position, because of that profile and how he projects to in the NFL. So yeah, I'm with you. Like I'm fine if he doesn't necessarily start right away. Okay, so he goes to the taxi squad for a little bit, but like you said, I don't think we're really going to have to be waiting all that long for him to get on the field and be an impact player for us anyways. So yeah, still like him quite a bit. I'm fine drafting him again. Like Malachi Starks, I mentioned end of the third, early fourth. I'm going to take Emmanwari just ahead of Malachi Starks, so that'll be about the range where he'd go for me as well. Okay, there was another round two safety, even if it was at the very end of the second round, but an interesting one because the Philadelphia Eagles selected Texas safety Andrew Mukuba. What were your thoughts on Mukuba?
Um, I don't love Makuba's game, honestly. Like it's not just a guy to me. I think he's a little bit above that. But when you get 4 year starters at these major, Power Five schools, they're doing something right, right? Like
Mhm.
the missed tackles are a huge concern for me. Think 14.4% missed tackle rate, which is rough. But fourth in passer rating allowed, the IQ and the awareness and the leadership, even in a 22-year-old prospect, is something obviously the Eagles are looking for. You do look at that back end. They Chauncey Gardner Johnson did move on. They go looks like they're going with Reed Blankenship and Sidney Brown. Reed Blankenship is I think was undrafted from Middle Tennessee State.
Mhm.
It's been very good, like, for both
Yeah.
IDP and for the Eagles. So, right now it looks like, Mukuba is kind of slotted behind him. I know you wanna kinda play the game of, like, is a second round pick really gonna sit behind an undrafted free agent? But, when these guys are producing like they are, another kinda similar to Emmanwari, I do think he's gonna find a way on the field. That Eagle, interior pass rush has been pretty dominant. They ended up grabbing Campbell, Jihad Campbell too, who it looks like they're going to try to play at edge and just keep rotating guys. So that back end is going to be more important. The Eagles are going to score a lot of points. Teams are going to be passing on them. So yeah, I mean, as a player himself, I'm not the biggest fan of Makuba, and there is a significant drop off after we're talking Emmanwari and Malachi Starks. But in a good defensive system that has produced some solid IDP value for us, so definitely a name that you want to keep on your radar. I think you're looking a little deeper in rookie drafts around the 5-6 round mark there. Probably at the earliest, depending to your point earlier, we have the ability to kind of stream and wait for some of these players, but also we don't want to jump the gun on some of these players and, I don't want to call it waste, but kind of stash a draft pick at safety when we have the ability to maybe, play a matchup game there. But
Mhm.
I know I believe the third best prospect model score there. So I think based on those hit rates, he is also a player who can, jump into that conversation of being a consistent IDP performer for us, but that clear path just isn't there right now. I know Sidney Brown's been a little inconsistent. Blankenship's been kind of rock solid there, so we'll see how that. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But right now, from a rookie draft standpoint, if we're talking May June, I'm definitely not jumping the gun there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I think, there's probably enough that we could find to be excited about with Makuba, landing with the Eagles that maybe he has starting potential this year. But um, I'm with you. I tend to believe that it's Sidney Brown, that's gonna get the shot next to Reed Blankenship. Now, keep in mind, like, I'm a Sidney Brown believer. Maybe it's, that Canadian kinship, but I think there's at least a chance that Brown is gonna be viewed as the starter in 2025. Like, I know he only started 1 game in 2024. It was, like, week 18, right? But he played really well in that game. He was a starter before in his career before he got injured. So, it's like it's small sample stuff with Sidney Brown, but I don't think the Sidney Brown is just gonna be a pushover on the depth chart that Mukuba is, a lock to start just because he's a second round pick, 64th overall. I mean, Brown was 67th overall in 2023, right? And I know, that wasn't Vic Fangio as the defensive coordinator at that time, but that does have an effect as well. So I don't know. I wouldn't, yeah, I'm not going to rule out Sidney Brown as a starter. That being said, I don't mind Mukuba. He does project a little bit more as a deep safety that spent almost all of his college snaps either in the slot or deep. So the metrics coming out are fine for the position as well, and the main thing just being draft capital, right? Obviously, that'll help him get on the field at some point, even if I have my doubts that it'll be year one if Sidney Brown is healthy. But I think I think Eagle fans are likely to disagree with me too, because which yeah, maybe I'm wrong because I did write which article was it was underrated players on no, sorry, not underrated players. I put Reed Blankenship for the Eagles, and then there was early breakout candidates. That's what it was. Sidney Brown was my pick for the Eagles. I had to pick somebody from all 32 teams, and I picked Sidney Brown. And there were a lot of Eagle fans that seem to think that he's just going to be a special teamer. I don't really believe that just yet. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is where I should have leaned into the model even more because the model hated Sidney Brown. He's actually like the highest drafted prospect to score below 7 in the model. There might be some anti-Canadian agenda in the model. I'm not 100% sure, but the success possibilities for Brown were never good coming out. So maybe I do have to let go, but I just can't. I don't know. There's something about again just Vic Fangio maybe not trusting the rookie right away and giving Sidney Brown a chance, but still like Makuba, like you said, I think late rookie drafts, fifth, sixth round is really where we're going to look at a lot of these guys now. All right. Next up is Kevin Winston Jr. out of Penn State. He was drafted by the Tennessee Titans, and an interesting player with, I think, some potential. Now, Winston is one of the most, I guess, inexperienced safeties coming out of this class. And a big reason for that is injuries, right? Specifically 2024, he was only able to play 74 defensive snaps across 2 appearances. However, while it is like a small sample size, anytime that he has been on the field, he's looked pretty promising. He delivered 3 straight seasons with at least a 90.0 run defense grade. Again, don't look too much into that since, again, it's super small sample, but it has been kind of a calling card for him where he has the highest run defense grade for his career coming out since 2018. But I talked about it in the pre-draft episode. That alone isn't going to be a reason to bet on him. In fact, when we looked at it pre-draft, that alone didn't really matter at all, which is why the model is kind of all encompassing and paints a better picture of the player by combining their metrics to point us in the right direction. So I don't like isolating one specific metric, but that definitely stood out at least since nobody else since 2018 has scored a higher career run defense grade. But anyways, Tennessee, they have Amani Hooker, who has been really solid for them for a few seasons now, and then Xavier Woods, who they brought in via free agency. So right away, Winston has to deal with 2 capable starters ahead of him on the depth chart. And no matter how much, we might like him pre-draft, that has to be some concern for path to snaps in 2025. Now, obviously, as we talk about all the time, situations change very quickly and very often in the NFL. And while Woods is signed to a 2-year deal, Amani Hooker is in the final year of his contract with the Titans. So I don't hate this spot long term, especially considering the third round capital where maybe he could become a starter as soon as 2026, even if it's unlikely that he gets on the field much in 2025. So that was another thing that I think I talked about in the pre-draft episode is that for a lot of these round 3 safeties, they tend to take about 3 years before they become consistent fantasy options for us, which is why we don't really need to draft them in most rookie drafts. So if we do, it should basically be a very late round flyer or as a UDFA, which is going to be the case for pretty much everyone we talk about from this point on outside of Starks and Emmanwori for sure. Like No need to spend draft capital on low value positions, but fine to take shots on them post rookie draft. And if you have space on the taxi squad, you can stash them there for the guys that do profile as like higher potential success rates, like Winston, who actually is kind of decent coming out. So, what were your thoughts on Kevin Winston?
Yeah, the size is, something that you really like there on the back end. To your point of Amani Hooker, been, I would say above average for what we kind of
Mhm.
expected. But he doesn't do anything that kind of makes you run out and say I need to trade or I need to, make sure I'm picking up Amani Hooker, right? Like since Kevin Byard left Tennessee, the safety position there has kind of been very meh for IDP managers, I would say. But yeah, the run defense grade kind of jumps off the chart at you. The injury is the big thing I'm worried about. Like missed tackle wise, I think 22 to 23. I don't believe he missed a single tackle, and then obviously missed two last year, but was playing hurt before he was ultimately you know, ruled out for the rest of the season. But yeah, I agree with you there. Like when you're looking at that like 2 to 3 year window before he could potentially be a starter, he's not off your boards, but I mean, you're talking like a 60-65 roster league with taxi squad eligibility that you're really like kind of looking to like stash him in. However, if something unfolds in preseason and injury happens in front of him, or we get way more positive news on the knee injury, you know, he obviously could rise up for you where you're thinking he's going to get some year one value and some year one snaps there. But as of right now, I'm not super confident in that. But I do like the run defense grade. I will definitely go on record saying Amani Hooker will not be a Tennessee Titan next year. Like so, if you're buying into that, I think Bayard Winston could be that guy there. And maybe you do buy him now and stash him if you got a deep enough roster, but there's a good chance that he might be a candidate that we're talking about as a buy low heading into the rookie draft next year, right? Like,
If
or even late season if he does come on. Sometimes you're really worried about these guys who missed the entire year with a injury. Um, and where are they at rehab and where are they at being able to be available for those rookie mini camps are huge, right? Like so if they're able to be there, I mean, we saw Emmanwori wearing the green dot, in the rookie mini camp, right? Like and like those things are just crazy encouraging. So like that Winston could be there with two veteran safeties and potentially learn there and learn that system. So the Titans are a rebuilding team. They're going to be playing from behind quite a bit there. So maybe Winston gets on the field and shows some of that career run defense grade that we're excited about. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these guys that we're talking about, like post Mukuba here, are really guys that might not even get drafted in your IDP leagues.
Yeah, it's a good point, right? Like, and with the injury too, like with Winston, like I feel like even if he landed on a depth chart that didn't have like two like established starters at the position, like there was a chance that the team wasn't going to deploy him as a 100% starter like right away. Anyways, like that he might very well may get eased into action here as a rookie. So I think the spot is good for him. It gives him a chance to maybe get his feet wet every once in a while here in year one, and then like you said, maybe it's somebody that we could be buying low on heading into year two. Okay, let's go on to one of the players that I had as a my guy heading into the NFL draft. Yeah, coming out of the NFL draft though, not as much. I didn't love the landing spot here for Jonas Sanker, but I'm not totally ready to give up on Sanker out of Virginia. He's now on the New Orleans Saints. So, what did you think about Jonas Sanker as a third round pick here for New Orleans?
I like Sanker. I hated the landing spot.
Yeah, yeah.
When you have Tyrann Matthew and Justin Reed there is probably zero chance that you're playing any snaps until the tank is officially on, which judging by that Saints roster might be by like week 6. So, maybe we're a little wrong on him, but first team all CC, I think each of the last 2 years. I think crazy tackle numbers too, right? Like
Oh
pretty high
yeah.
tackle numbers there. Yeah, I mean, I think history, kind of just looking back even to last year, Paulson Adebo, even when Ugo Amadi got put on the field, uh, forget who else I'm missing there, but like 3 Saints in the top 25 in fantasy points per game, I think by season end. Good point is they were, getting passed on quite a bit. But yeah, I mean the system there I think is a little favorable to the DB position, especially for IDP scoring there. It's not all bad with Tyrann Mathieu and Justin Reed. Like, if there are any concerns about how to play the safety position, Jonas Sanker is going to learn that extremely quickly by two guys that have mul- multiple Super Bowls amongst them and just miles and miles of knowledge. So I like that. In terms of the landing spot, I kind of wish it was better. After the NFL draft, I was kind of hoping that the draft capital was a little better as well, but
Mhm.
I was a lot more excited about him pre-draft as you were than I am kind of as we sit here today. But definitely not writing him off. I think if we're talking about those guys towards the end of the draft that might be worth the dart throw, like, yes, it seems right now that Sanker's not going to be a player that is going to see much, if anything, outside of special teams in year one. But
Mhm.
you never know, right? Like, if a team's competing, and the Saints clearly do not seem to be, there's a chance that a Tyrann Mathieu or a Justin Reed may get shipped off and might open up, a spot for him. But I don't think you're risking a draft capital outside of like a sixth, seventh rounder on, proving that theory correct.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think for me, like, what kind of had me excited about Sanker was that he has this kind of exact kind of profile for like day 3 safeties that we should throw darts at, because he is likely more of like this box heavy safety type that helps his IDP value. Now, the good thing that I thought anyways, like, I thought he was going to be a day 3 safety. He wasn't. He ends up going late on day 2. So like you said, it's just the Saints starters that are not going to get out of his way in 2025. Justin Reed just signed a long-term contract there this offseason. Tyrann Mathieu, he's actually a free agent at the end of this season. So maybe there's a path beyond this year for Sanker, but we'll see. So, again, someone I'm not drafting in rookie drafts for the most part, but he is someone that I am okay looking at post rookie drafts because of the potential beyond this season as a potential stash where, for those deeper rosters where he might become a starter in 2026. And he's one that, again, should thrive around the line of scrimmage. 41% of his college defensive snaps were in the box, led to an 87th percentile first contact rate and a 96th percentile tackle rate. Now, the tackle rate doesn't translate to the NFL, but that usage can translate when considering the type of player that he is. He's big, strong, run supporting safety. Those are the types with round 3 and beyond capital that we should be betting on. So, yeah, I don't mind Sanker just as like a low cost kind of flyer here after rookie drafts are done, and could be a potential, somebody, or could turn into something basically beyond this season.
Alontae Taylor is the guy I missed, by the way, but all 3 of those Saints, DBs that were top 25 were all cornerbacks, so I don't know how well that translates
Yeah.
over as well.
Yeah, that was crazy last year, man. It was like, yeah, like you said, it was Paulson Adebo, who was like far and away the number one like DB in all of IDP, and then he got hurt, and then Alontae Taylor kind of soaked up those spots. And yeah, he was amazing. That Ugo Amadi was really good at one point. Like, it's just, yeah, it was nuts. So who
Those are,
knows if
like,
that happens again?
huge weeks too, like, we're not talking like,
Yeah, yeah.
"Oh, he's a good starter," you're like, 2025 every week, you're like, "What is going on?"
Yeah, I know they were blitzing like crazy out of the slot there, and that like had a huge impact for those guys where they were able to like convert sacks, which, as we know, it's not going to always happen every year, but that was definitely something that was hitting big time for us last year. So, um, all right, let's go on to another player that I like a fair bit, actually. Xavier Watts, who was drafted 96th overall in round 3 by the Atlanta Falcons. Now, Watts is not exactly like in the same mold as like Sanker or Emmanwori, those box heavy guys with high tackle rates, but I think what keeps him interesting to me, at least, is that he has more versatility coming out of college. He played 30% in the box, 43% deep, 24% in the slot. So he can fit like many more schemes and kind of be effective, or more effective than maybe someone like Sanker, who's, box heavy mold might keep him from breaking out into a full-time starting role if he doesn't develop more as an overall player. So Watts in Atlanta, is a spot that I think I really am interested in. I know that they brought in Jordan Fuller in free agency, but just a 1-year deal, so nothing scary there. And Atlanta was a team that I know spent a lot of time scouting safeties during the pre-draft process, so they were invested in getting someone early who I think they believe can be a long-term answer next to Jesse Bates. And to me, Watts is that guy. He is an absolute ball hawk, obviously, as well. Like 13 interceptions over the past 2 seasons combined, 2.42% play on pass rate. So that is basically any passing play that he gets his hand on the ball in the air. That's an 86th percentile mark. So really like that about him. Obviously, Jordan Fuller is in the way right now, but outside of that 1 year with the Rams back in 2021, he has not been very good. He had a 47 coverage grade last season. That ranked 94th out of 106 qualifying safeties last year. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that Watts surpasses Fuller on the depth chart, or even that Fuller even makes the team come week one. Because remember, too, this was just the first of two safeties that the Falcons drafted this year, with the other being a round 4 pick, and we'll talk about him in a sec. So I'm intrigued by Watts. He's definitely a name I think to keep an eye on here. 8.37 prospect score, which is a very good for a round 3 prospect. 31% of safety prospects that score an 8 or higher become top 12 IDPs. 49% top 24, 56% top 36. So not like the high end marks, obviously, at those 8.5 scores and up, but 8.37, he's right on the fringe there. So I like the opportunity in Atlanta. I'm gonna be buying the penny stocks of Watts right now, and basically hoping that they hit big. So, what did you think about Xavier Watts?
Yeah, I was Xavier Watts was a guy I was really hoping for either Carolina or Atlanta. I know two
Yeah,
teams that really wanted to address that safety position. You know, Watts landing with Atlanta, obviously with Jesse Bates, we know he is kind of the IDP guy to have there, right? And needing someone else. I think we saw a little bit of Justin Simmons and last year, and then Richie Grant a little bit over the last couple of years. But yeah, really like Watts as well. One of the kind of more veteran older safeties here, but also a guy who transitioned. He has wide receiver hands. Like you could tell that he was a wide receiver, right? Like still I think a little bit raw in terms of true safety. But playing with Jesse Bates, who was once viewed as that deep safety, will definitely like help. You know what I mean? Understand the coverages back there and all that kind of stuff. A lot of experience. Definitely, like you said, like ball hawk. If that ball goes around him, like there's a good chance he's making a play on it. Atlanta had a need for safety here. I actually have him as my DB3 in this class. Like I really
me
do
too.
like Watts quite a bit. So outside of the fact that he's a Golden Domer, he is he is a guy that I'm definitely drafting in rookie drafts. I'm looking to kind of add him late there, and I do think to your point on Jordan Fuller, not very good, like not anything to write home about. So I fully expect Xavier Watts to be the starting safety alongside Bates. What that entails in terms of like instant year one IDP production from a fantasy perspective, I'm not sold there yet, but we'll see, right? Like there's gonna be some healthy competition in that division. There's
Yeah, me
some weapons in that division where there wasn't maybe like 2 to 3 years ago. So, I'd be really, really interested in his year 1 prospect, and then obviously due to the prospect score, I think you're looking at some of those, probably in the top 24, top 36 range, maybe in the first couple years there where you think that hit rate should be above 50%. I'm definitely like in agreement there, and, definitely a big fan of Watts.
Yeah, me too, man. I'm looking forward to hopefully him beating out Jordan Fuller at some point soon. And I'm glad that you provided a spoiler there for your rankings as well, because I also have Xavier Watts as my safety 3 for this class. So yeah, looking forward to Xavier Watts. So we got a couple more safeties here. So let's talk quickly about Craig Woodson, because he was taken early round 4. We'll only cover a couple round 4 safeties. Not going to spend a ton of time on these day 3 guys, since they're, again, low value, low end success rates, but wanted to at least sneak in a couple. And since we're going in order of how they were drafted, Woodson is the next man up. Glosser, any thoughts on Woodson in New England?
The old, kind of like adage, like guys that go to New England, how are they going to be used? It's not Bill Belichick anymore, but it's now Mike Vrabel. So is it still Bill
Mhm.
Belichick? Um, but yeah, Woodson's got some things to like about him. Improved tackler, those type of things. Jabril Peppers, I believe the out is in after this season, so 2026. Gotta imagine that the team probably won't retain him, especially after the legal scare last year. Kyle Duggar, I think, is still going to be Kyle Duggar. I know last year, Marte Mapu was kind of all over the place. What is he? But if one thing we know about Mike Vrabel is time in Tennessee, those defenses are good, they're dynamic, they're versatile, they're gonna challenge you, and he's gonna get the most out of these players. So Woodson, even though being around for safety, I do think that they're gonna find a way to kind of utilize him. But I have next to no faith that that will be in year one. So I I wouldn't expect much from him from a IDP standpoint. You're kind of just that's I wouldn't even look at him as a stash player. I think he might be a player if you see some things unfolding and you're unfortunate enough to watch some of those Patriots games. You see some things unfolding where he's getting some actual defensive snaps. Maybe throw him in there. I do believe, like breaking news wise, I believe Marcus Jones is out for the year with a torn labrum. I think that just came out shortly.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's a big loss. I'm not saying Woodson's gonna fill that by any means, but obviously, the more DBs that New England loses, they're probably gonna turn to some of these draft picks and all that kind of stuff. So there might be some potential where he's used in a different type of role than we kind of forecast right now.
Yeah, that's interesting. Wow. Damn, that's a bummer for Marcus Jones, man. That guy he's looked electric when he's got chances, but just can't stay healthy. So yeah, I mean, for Woodson, like I guess I was surprised that they, the fourth round was a safety for New England at this point. Obviously, like you said, they have Kyle Duggar. He's locked up through 2027. Jabril Prepper, or yeah, whatever his name, Jabroni Peppers. He's also signed through 2027. And like you said, there is an out at least at some point, but they got guys like you mentioned, Marte Mapu. They even brought in Marcus Epps, who was a starter for Vegas before his injury last season. They gave him just a 1 year deal in free agency. So they have this kind of like big stable of guys with seemingly no path to future snaps with Duggar and Peppers in the way. Maybe Peppers, and like you said, and the off field issues kind of creep back around, and that they can get out of that contract with him. But that would help Woodson. He did score relatively well in the model 7.97, but this really just feels like more like a depth play by New England, like you said. So we'll see if anything happens there, but definitely not somebody that I'm looking to roster at this point. Okay, one more name, only because we covered one Atlanta safety already. That at least I was excited about it, and I know you like obviously were too with Xavier Watts. So Atlanta were kind of the kings of defensive double dippers here with within a short time period in this draft. They went Jalen Walker and James Pearson round one, and then Watts in round three, and Bowman in round four at safety. So they're making sure this defense is going to be basically as leak free as possible heading into 2025. So that's Billy Bowman Jr. of the Atlanta Falcons. So uh, I'm not all that hopeful for Bowman, to be honest. Like I didn't love the player heading into the draft. He kind of sunk in the prospect model a bit compared to like his peers who were and did get projected to be drafted in a similar range. So he just didn't have a lot going for him in our metrics that matter. Like run defense was particularly poor. Coverage wasn't bad, but also not someone that like had ball production in college either, right? So um, really terrible tackler. A 25% missed tackle rate for his college career is really, really rough. You compare that missed tackle rate to someone like Jonas Sanker, who lived around the line of scrimmage and faced a lot of traffic and potential tackles. He had just an 11% career missed tackle rate. Jonas Sanker did, and Bowman's 25% is the worst mark in this entire class. So I think he can be a solid safety three in the NFL where, if he needs to fill in on occasion with injured starters, act as a band aid when needed. I don't know that he's somebody that I'm interested in for IDP. How do you feel about Bowman?
Yeah, not a fan of the player self. I think he projects a little bit as more of like a slot corner, but I also think I know last year he played his lowest of his career as snaps as a slot corner, so maybe they're trying to move him more into a traditional safety role. But yeah, very, very poor tackler. Like, I mean, those guys almost never translate to the pro game where we're like, oh yeah, he was horrendous in college, but like this guy does can't miss a beat at the NFL level, right? Like if you're struggling to tackle, good 80% of guys who don't make it to the NFL, there's a good chance you're not bringing down you know, Chuba Hubbard in the open field or something like that, right? So yeah, I'm not a huge fan. I mean, obviously, if the draft capital was a little higher, I think we would be kind of like scratching our head even more, saying like, what are they seeing that we're not? So, the missed tackle rate, the lack of ball skills, I do like the coverage grade, and obviously, with the players that they have there in Atlanta and facing some of those more high powered offenses, young offenses, they're gonna potentially maybe employ him on the field late in the season or something like that. But from an IDP standpoint, I'm not overly excited here for Bowman at all.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it's a good point, right? Like a lot of like, as much as like overly efficient tackle rates don't necessarily translate year to year and from college to the NFL, like those guys that really struggle to tackle, like that, are just not good at it. Those do translate like more often than not, right? Like that's something like I think about Maris Lufau last year. I remember doing the pre-draft pod with Kyle, and I was just like, why the hell won't this guy tackle like a normal person? Like he just like so hesitant, doesn't tackle it. Then this year, like in the NFL, he got some opportunities. He was really poor in tackles versus expected. He had like a poor tackle grade as well. Like these are the kind of things that you worry about at the next level, and especially for IDP, right? Because we need those tackles to happen. We can't leave meat on the bones here for especially for such a deep position like safety. So yeah, not the biggest fan of Bowman, but who knows? It would be cool if he worked out as well. We'll see how it goes. But those are kind of the eight safeties that we'll talk about. What do you say we do like a quick rankings here, John? Maybe just give me your 1 to 8, I guess. However you have them ranked, and then I'll do mine.
Feel like we're going to be pretty similar here. I
Yeah,
think we are kind of year after year. There's like that middle ground where 4, 5, 6, somewhere in there. But
yeah.
yeah, I have them. Emmanwori, Malaki Starks, Xavier Watts, Mukuba, Winston, Sanker, and then Woodson and Bowman.
Okay. All right. Yeah. No need for me to even say mine because this is exactly the same. Yeah, I think this is actually the first year we were not a single change,
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah, those are my exact 8 as well. I'm in Wari, Starks, Watts, Makuba, Winston, Sanker, Woodson, Bowman, 1 to 8. So it get I I guess, like, I like this class, I think, more than I thought I would. Like, there's players like Sanker, like Kevin Winston, who I think are really interesting, but beyond that kinda top 4, top 5, safeties in this class. I think there's some potential here. Like almost all the rookie positions, though, we're gonna have to be patient for it to come through. So, not expecting a lot here year 1 outside of some of those top guys, and even them, who knows? We'll have to see how things shake out, but, that is going to do it for us. Thank you everybody for tuning in. If you are watching on the YouTube, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I greatly appreciate that. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. I appreciate that just as much. Jon Glosser, thank you, my friend. I appreciate you more than you know. You've been very flexible with your schedule this week, helping me get this episode out there. So I can't thank you enough for always coming on here and doing this with me. Appreciate it.
No problem, John. I really appreciate being able to, kind of get on and talk some of these safeties with you. And, you got to remember to like these classes. Sometimes we love these guys, the Jaden Hicks, right? Like we didn't see Jaden Hicks
Yeah.
till like week 11 last year, and now you got Justin Reed moving on, and it looks like Jaden Hicks is going to be the starting safety there, right? So, don't always take our word for it. Andrew Mukuba could be a guy who's starting, halfway through the year. But to our point earlier, when you're looking at some of these DBs and they're able to be in landing spots where you see a potential path there. I think we were a little apart last year of like Newman and Hicks, like 1 and 2, like going back and forth.
Mhm.
And like it's rare that you see that where like Newman goes in and crushes it, right? And then gets injured. And then, around the same time as when Hicks kind of picks up and you're like, oh yeah, they were right. This guy's awesome, right? Like so
Right.
and you're in a really good spot right now if you because you could have stashed Jaden Hicks on your taxi squad all year last year, and now you're looking at it, you're like, oh, he scored that many fantasy points. I didn't know. I didn't even need him. I was streaming or I had, a little bit more depth there at the safety position. But these guys score fantasy points and they're imperative to your roster and they help you on these championship runs. So as excited as we get about these guys, it's they're definitely key pieces to making that championship run and getting that IDP championship.
Absolutely, man. Got to plug somebody into those roster spots. So hopefully we could find some good ones to help us. And yeah, I'm with you. I forgot that we had covered Jaden Hicks quite a bit last year. I think it was somebody that I was excited about too. And hopefully, yeah, he does get that starting shot. And I know I got him rostered in a few spots and hoping that he emerges. But there's going to be plenty of guys like that every single year, and we just got to say, like you said, to keep an eye out for that path to snap. So John, I really appreciate it, man. Please do let everybody know what you got going on over at Dynasty Nerds as well before you go.
Awesome. Yes. The 2025 IDP rookie big board just dropped earlier this week. Definitely check that out at dynastynerds.com. Also the great John Macri, along with a lot of my other, I would guess, best friends, if you will, in this FFIDP world, are helping out with doing a combined Superflex tight end premium IDP mock draft, where I do a full write up for that. That should be out sometime later next week. For those of you that haven't already completed your drafts, gives you a good idea of where some of these players will go and kind of checking ourselves even where we are. And, John and I telling you that we're not drafting these guys and, look at this and maybe we are. So it get kind of it's easy to say where we would draft a guy, but once you're on the board and you're looking at ADPs and you're looking at your potential roster and all that kind of stuff, things change quite a bit, right? Like
Yep.
I don't like certain player, but if the upside's there in the fourth or fifth round, I'm gonna take him. So definitely keep an eye out for that. And also, rankings will be coming out in article form at dynastynerds.com. So we will be kind of releasing those slowly as the off season keeps going on. So very excited about what we got going on over there, and really happy to be here with John today, and being able to talk IDPs. We don't get to do it enough.
That's right, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading more of your work as well, and yeah, looking forward to finishing up that rookie draft. Like you said, I mean, look, people are going to be doing rookie drafts almost all of May. That I still have a few left that haven't even started yet, so there's going to be plenty of time to get more, basically consume more rookie content here and learn more about how drafts are going and stuff like that. And like you said, no draft is ever the same. There are always twists and turns. Things will be different every single time we're drafting. So that changes where we're going to draft guys as well, right? Obviously. So yeah, definitely keep an eye out for all of that stuff. As for me, rookie IDP rankings are up on pff.com. This week I wrote up the Superflex plus IDP draft strategy walkthrough guide. There's a video for that as well. I did the short form video for IDP, like veteran winners and losers. It's like a 20-minute video or so. So that came out this week. But yeah, plenty of stuff out there. Next week, we're going to be wrapping up the rookie episodes, talking about some rookie sleepers with Mr. Mike Wohlert. So looking forward to doing that as well. And until next time, peace out.